Looking back over the 50 years, it is clear that China and New Zealand have both been major beneficiaries of relative peace, stability, and prosperity in our region and globally. The rules, norms, and institutions, such as the United Nations, that underlie that stability and prosperity remain indispensable. By facilitating global cooperation on issues that can only be solved collectively, international rules, norms, and institutions are more important than ever. Wherever they may fail, our first port of call must always be to find ways to make them stronger, because we, both New Zealand and China, have benefited from them. China has witnessed remarkable development as a result of reform and opening up to the global economy. At the same time, China has had a huge impact on the alleviation of poverty. According to the World Bank, close to 800 million have been lifted out of extreme poverty since China began to reopen to the world. Like many others, New Zealand is a supporter of China's integration into the global economy and trading system that helped China achieve this feat, including through China's accession to the World Trade Organization in 2001 and our own early FTA negotiations. As I've said, China has benefited enormously from these processes, as has New Zealand. This is a vivid example of how trade can support a country's domestic objectives to lift the well-being of a country's citizens. And it is why I've packed the last couple of months with several trade missions. And I'm proud we've secured 4 major free trade agreements in the past few years, and of course, the China FTA upgrade. But if we look to the counterfactual, we see how much we have to lose should the international rules-based system falter. And yet the international rules, norms, and institutions that have benefited our countries, they are under threat. As I said in Sydney last month, it's grim out there. A clear-cut example of this is Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, which is an affront to us all. It's an example of a country resorting to power rather than rules in an effort to shape and reshape the international environment in its own favour. As history shows us repeatedly, when large countries disregard sovereignty and territorial integrity with a sense of impunity, it does not bode well for particularly small countries like New Zealand. And that's why, as a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, and in line with its commitment to the UN Charter, we continue to urge China to be clear that it does not support the Russian invasion, and we have called on China to use its access and influence to help bring an end to the conflict. The implications of the war are global and are felt far from Europe, including here in the Indo-Pacific. And as a nation of the region, we have a fundamental interest in its peace and stability. In response to increasing tensions or risks to the region, be they in the Pacific, the South China Sea, or the Taiwan Strait, New Zealand's position remains consistent. We called for adherence to international rules and norms, for diplomacy, de-escalation, and dialogue, rather than threats, force, and coercion. More broadly, whether looking at the trading regime in the WTO, the law of the sea under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or universal human rights protected by the United Nations, it is a contested and challenging landscape. Indeed, there is little debate that the world is a more complex place to navigate. This is a point made as often by leaders in Beijing as elsewhere. It has been a common theme of my discussions with counterparts around the world, not least in our own Pacific region. There is a lot at stake, and we all have a role to play.